Recorded in beautiful Loveland, Colorado. Welcome to Peace Love Moto, the podcast for motorcyclists seeking that peaceful, easy feeling as we cruise through this life together. Are you ready? Let's go! May I ask you a personal question? How's your relationship with your mother? Oh, wait. Let me rephrase that. How's your relationship with Mother Nature? Mother Nature. Do you feel surrounded by her right now, or maybe far from her? You know, some of us spend a lot of time in front of a computer, like I am right now. But I must admit, before this recording session here, I did go for a ride. It was a little cold, but it was great. Going for a ride on my motorcycle, whether it's a short ride around town or it's a full day ride out in the country, that time away with Mother Nature is really priceless. Now, in the next moment, I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know. But let me just say this. There's a large difference between traveling by car and traveling by motorcycle. On the bike, our feet are just inches from the ground. And on the bike, we know when it's cold, we know when it's hot, and we know when it's somewhere right in between, just right. On the bike, we accept the risks that there is very little around us to protect us from the elements, or from other vehicles for that matter. We're very much exposed. But here's my point, at least for me. When I'm on my bike, I feel a little closer to Mother Nature. Now, depending on where you are, riding your motorcycle in a space that's free of crowds may be a challenge, but it may be something that you plan and a route away from the busyness of the world. I need those escapes too. So here's a quick story of something that happened to me where I was just completely captivated by Mother Nature. So I was riding my motorcycle far out in the country on an old dirt road, one that I've been on many times, and I saw a herd of Mustang horses in a beautiful green pasture with snow-capped mountains all behind them. It was a beautiful sight. Now, I'm pretty sure that these were not domesticated horses. I don't know a lot about horses, but they had quite a wild, free-spirited look about them. So it was quite impressive, so that I could take some video. And they just looked at me. The perfect picture. I found myself completely captivated by this scene, by Mother Nature. My mind was fully engaged with what I was seeing, what was happening right in front of me, the beauty of it all. I was so captivated that I didn't realize I was falling. Yeah, my kickstand was down to the left and I was leaning to my right, and then guess what? I managed to tumble along with my bike into the ditch on the side of the road, my 0 mile per hour crash. Well, that got the attention of the horses. They ran away right away, but I wasn't going anywhere fast. Do you know what it's like to fall into the ditch with a 500-pound motorcycle? Well, my friends, that's not good. Luckily, I fell clear of my bike, so it didn't really land on me. I was fine. But I tried to get that bike upright again. I offloaded everything that I could, but that bike was not going to move. Did I mention that this was a very remote road? And it was getting toward evening? Yeah, very few cars come down that road. I didn't recall seeing any for the last several miles. Well, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, if you have to crash somewhere, at least you're in a really pretty place among Mother Nature, just like what I was describing. But I hadn't planned to spend the night also. So it was time to do something. It wasn't like I was lost. I'd been down this old dirt road many times before, so I certainly knew where I was, and I knew where the paved road was. It was about 2 or 3 miles away. I could almost see it way off in the distance. And so I decided to walk. And only after about 15 minutes, I got lucky. There was a Jeep coming up the road, and inside that Jeep was a very, very large man, like the size of a linebacker. I told him what my problem was, although it was probably obvious, me walking down the road in a motorcycle jacket, carrying a motorcycle helmet with no motorcycle. He probably knew what was going on. So he let me hop in the Jeep with him, and we went to my helpless little motorcycle in the ditch. Almost single-handedly, he pulled my bike up out of the ditch and back onto the road. I was hardly helping at all. This was one lucky and unforgettable day. I certainly didn't expect to fall into a ditch. I didn't expect to see the beauty of Mother Nature through those wild horses and the extra time I got to spend out there. Speaking of Mother Nature and beautiful places, Rocky Mountain National Park is about 25 miles west of where I'm speaking right now. Rocky has some of the most beautiful spaces I've ever seen. For many years, I've enjoyed hiking and motorcycling through the park. I love it so much, I've even become a tour guide part-time in the national park. Started that a few years ago. Talk about a joyful work. Oh my goodness. I'll describe that a little bit more later on. Rocky Mountain National Park is home, of course, to lots of wildlife such as moose and elk and deer, but it's also home to an amazing motorcycle journey. Trail Ridge Road. That's the highest continuous road in the United States. This road rises to over 12,000 feet above sea level. Trees can't grow that high. Where trees stop growing, we call that tree line. And that's about 11,500 feet at that latitude. Keep the term tree line in your mind for just a few minutes. Up there, well, it's an entirely different world. It's a little harder to breathe because the air is quite thin at this elevation. You can see in any direction for miles. Completely amazing. On summer weekends, I sometimes work as a tour guide in the national park. I work for a small business in the village of Estes Park, which is right next to Rocky. That's a little business called Green Jeep Tours. Now, we take groups of tourists in these modified Jeeps where the roof is completely removed and my guests can see in all directions. While we drive, we use an intercom to describe to our guests everything that they're seeing along this 3-hour tour. I often tell them about my passion, motorcycling, and someone will often say, "Wow, I bet it's great to ride a motorcycle out here." And then I'll say, "Yes, sir, it is." On the tour, when we reach one particular point, there's a breathtaking view of snow-capped mountain range right in front of us. We stop there on the tour, and I invite my guests to step out on a big rock formation, and I describe to them how the valley floor is about 1,500 feet down, and those snow-capped peaks, well, those are at 12 and 13,000 feet above sea level. You can see clearly at the certain elevation, that's about 11.5, that the trees will stop growing. And remember, that's tree line, like I mentioned earlier. Well, it's here where I share with my guest a song. I share it in the form of a poem while we're all looking at those peaks together. One of my favorite singers is James Taylor. A number of years ago, James recorded a song called Gaia, which means Mother Earth. I always thought that the third verse of that song was very fitting to the view right in front of us. So I typically will ask my group just to turn and gaze upon the valley below, then look up to those peaks and to just stop. Just be quiet. Just take it in. In Gaia, this is where James Taylor says this in the third verse, and this is what I quote to them, and I'll quote it to you now. "I thought we ought to walk a while. So we left that town in a single file, going up and up and up, mile after mile after mile. We reached the tree line, and I dropped my pack. I sat down on my haunches and I looked back down over that mountain, just helpless and speechless and breathless. Oftentimes I'll look at my guests and some will be just overcome with emotion, their connection with Mother Nature right then, right in front of me. It's wonderful, so wonderful to see. And even though I've led these hundreds of times now, I well up too with emotion just thinking how beautiful Mother Nature is right in front of us. I have so loved those words from that song Gaia that I contacted James Taylor's office to say thank you. I wrote him a letter. To my shock, I was contacted back by his personal assistant. Her name was Ellen. And Ellen said, would you mind recording that for us and sending us a copy of the recording? And I said, yes, ma'am, I will. So the next time that I had a tour in Rocky, I handed my phone over to a guest and said, would you mind recording this? And they did. That video landed on James Taylor's Instagram account, which was awesome to see. And then they offered my wife and I free tickets to go see a show when it came to Denver. So that was great enough, right? Great seats to see James Taylor. The show began with a video of people doing tributes to James's music. Would you believe I was on there too? I couldn't believe it. It was just 4 seconds of my little speech there in Rocky Mountain National Park, but I was on the video too, and I will never forget that. Back to motorcycling. There are days when I come back into Rocky Mountain National Park on my motorcycle and I stop at the same spot where I take my guests. And here I think of the same words to Gaia, and I find myself helpless and speechless and breathless once again. I've ridden there sometimes at night just to see the stars and to listen to the wind blowing down through the trees. Just the quietness of it all, the beauty of it all. It's fantastic. It's in those moments that I'm speechless. My friends, that's our Mother Nature. Sometimes we have to really be quiet. We have to quiet not only our voices and our motorcycles, shut them down. We have to quiet our minds too. Because when we are that quiet, Mother Nature will speak to us. I'm convinced of that. That's when you're fully absorbed in the moment. One little tip though, don't fall off your motorcycle. My friends, thank you for listening today. I wish you peace. I wish you love.